Michael Jackson is considered today as one of pop music's most successful and, as a result, richest artists of all time. The incredible wealth he amassed over the years attracted countless headlines, as well as his later financial blows. However, much misinformation has been put out over the years, largely due to overzealous rumors and sensationalized tabloid fodder. How did he exactly make his considerable fortune? Was Michael Jackson pop's first billionaire? And did the king of pop end up dying completely broke? In this series of videos, we hope to, in some estimation, uncover the numbers behind Michael Jackson's complex finances, from his royalty checks to numerous business dealings, endorsement payouts, and outlandish expenses, revealing the truth behind Michael Jackson's colossal bank account. Here's the detail. When Michael and his brothers first hit the pop music scene in 1969 as the Jackson 5, they debuted with a string of #1 hits that broke records, pushing the Beatles out the charts. Within a year, the singles I Want You Back, ABC, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There sold over 3 million units each. Their debut album also raked in the cash, with Diana Ross Presents The Jackson 5 selling over 500,000 copies by the end of 1970. Their newfound chart success meant that the Jackson 5 were also performing to sell-out audiences around the U.S., with their first 6-show tour grossing over $500,000, $3.8 million in today's dollars. However, the Motown-founded group had their record label take a hefty proportion of the revenue earned from record sales, leaving them with the 2.8% royalty rate as per their contract. In their first 3 years, the Jackson 5 sold an incredible 33 million singles and 8 million albums, giving the group an estimated cut of $1.8 million to $2.7 million, $13.2 million to $19.7 million when adjusted for inflation. In addition, the brothers toured almost continuously throughout this period, embarking on no less than 3 domestic tours as well as 1 in Europe, performing over 119 shows and grossing approximately $5.9 million, $43.1 million when adjusted for inflation, giving them a cut of between $2.9 million to $4.1 million, $21.2 million to $30 million when adjusted for inflation. If you include merchandise and other income streams, by the end of 1972, the Jackson 5 as an entity earned them a total of $5.7 million to $8.6 million, or $41.7 million to $62.9 million today. Michael Jackson openly spoke about receiving $200,000 royalty checks in the mail as a kid, in which he would cash in, take a couple of dollars out to buy some candy, and leave the rest in the bank. However, during this period, young Michael didn't have access to any personal wealth of his own, as his earnings were managed by his father and absorbed into the Jackson family finances. When the Jacksons announced they were leaving their record label in 1975, industry commentators estimated that the group were contributing as much as a third of Motown's yearly revenue of $45 million, $255.7 million today. Instead, the family's patriarch secured a lucrative contract to have the group sign with Epic Records, a subsidiary of CBS, who agreed to give them more creative control over their musical output and offered a much higher royalty rate of 20% per record. Although the brothers went on to sell millions as the Jacksons, Michael was never given the opportunity to acquire his own personal wealth until he developed an independent career as an adult. His first solo record with CBS, Off the Wall, was off the bat a huge success, selling over 5 million copies domestically in its first year, becoming the best-selling record of 1980 and the highest-selling album by a black artist up until that point. His solo royalty rate was similarly as favorable as what was offered to poach the brothers from Motown, which meant Michael the artist was in a unique position, amassing a considerable fortune from just one record, earning $1.10 to $1.50 per album sold. By the end of 1982, Michael Jackson received a figure of approximately $9.4 to $12.8 million, or $29.8 million to $40.5 million when adjusted for inflation. Meanwhile, his father Joseph was having financial issues after several bad business dealings and was reportedly looking to sell the family's Los Angeles home. In response to this crisis, Michael offered to purchase the house from them, gifting a 50% stake in the property to his mother. The singer then made grand plans with his newfound wealth to effectively knock down the old mid-century structure and rebuild a fairy tale mansion in French chateau style. Its centerpiece became a 5-bedroom, 7-bathroom, 10,000 square foot residence. The property also included a state-of-the-art home studio and 3 small stores that resembled a candy store, a puppet shop, and an ice cream shop. Additions to the property also included a 6-foot Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs diorama, a movie theater, games room, a small zoo, manicured gardens, and a koi pond. While Michael's dream home was being constructed, his attorney, John Branca, secured him the highest royalty rate ever achieved in the music industry up until that point. With his contract up for negotiation and with a very promising career ahead, having achieved sky-high record sales with Off the Wall, he was in prime position to secure a very lucrative deal for his next LP. With approximately $2 or $5.68 today going in his pocket for each album sold, Michael Jackson released his 1982 juggernaut Thriller. Over the course of 1983, Michael Jackson's bank accounts were flooded with cash as the royalty checks kept coming in. Thriller spent a record 37 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard 200 and at its peak was selling 1 million units a week. The record later became the best-selling album in the United States in 1983 and 1984, making it the first album to be the best-selling for 2 years, and of course was awarded the best-selling album of all time in February 1984. From Thriller sales alone, by the spring of 1984, Michael Jackson had quickly amassed an incredible fortune of $50 million, or $147 million when adjusted for inflation. At this time, Michael leveraged his incredible fortune to push his career into new heights, as demonstrated when his record company refused to fund the production for his Thriller music video. Jackson paid for it himself and offset the additional cost of $500,000, or $1.4 million today, by having a production crew document its creation for the making of Michael Jackson's Thriller home video. During the infancy of home VCR systems, the documentary became the best-selling video cassette at the time, selling well over 50,000 copies within 6 months of its release, making the now global superstar in excess of $2 million, or $5.9 million today. 1984 would also be significant as Michael Jackson embarked on the then highest-grossing tour of all time, the Victory Tour, grossing $75 million, or $220.6 million in dollars today. Him and his brothers also secured an endorsement deal with Pepsi Cola worth $5 million, or $14.7 million today. However, its bloated production costs, high ticket price, and dodgy payment processing tactics caused a widespread public backlash and forced Michael to give up his portion of profits from the tour in order to stem the ongoing PR crisis. Giving the charity an estimated $5 million, or $14.7 million when adjusted for inflation, Michael also gave the settlement he received from Pepsi for the burns he suffered while filming to the hospital that treated him, amounting to $1.5 million, or $4.4 million today. Although Michael's focus was more on giving his money away, the press and promotional benefits of the Victory Tour led the superstar's Thriller record to surpass sales of 40 million units by 1985, netting Michael additional royalty payments of $30 million, or $85.2 million when adjusted for inflation. Swamped with cash and with an estimated net worth of $100 million, or $284 million today, Michael was keen to make large-scale investments with his considerable newfound wealth, the largest being his purchase of the ATV music catalog in the summer of 1985 for a whopping $47.5 million, or the equivalent of $135 million today. Jackson went moonwalker to mogul and instantly the most powerful individual in all of music publishing. On top of income he already received for his own work, Michael Jackson would now take 50% of all royalty payments for when these songs were played, performed, or used for other activities like licensing for a film or television commercial. Before his purchase of the catalog, ATV was grossing approximately $15 million per annum, $44.3 million when adjusted for inflation, with half its revenue tied to Beatles music. In the years that followed, Jackson would increase profits through lucrative yet controversial licensing deals, as well as compilation album and documentary releases. upping his own personal income but also adding value to the asset he invested in. In preparation for the release of his next record and first solo tour, Michael Jackson signed a new 3-year advertising contract with Pepsi-Cola that was the largest of its kind, worth somewhere between $5 million and $15 million, or $13.9 million and $41.8 million today. In return, Jackson would appear in no less than 4 commercials which were to be shown in the United States and abroad, and also contribute 2 pieces of original music and perform 1 song from an upcoming album. While busy recording, in 1986 and 1987, Michael Jackson reportedly earned an additional $80 million, or $215.3 million today, largely from royalty payments, despite it being almost 5 years since his last record was released. As soon as his next album, Bad, was released in 1987, Michael embarked on a gigantic worldwide tour. The tour and his music videos helped promote his latest release, pushing it and its singles to the top of the charts. One very expensive investment Jackson personally made towards the project was the production costs for his full-length musical feature film Moonwalker. Costing in excess of $30 million, $80.7 million today, the very ambitious film was released theatrically in Europe and South America, but Warner Bros. Canceled plans for a Christmas 1988 theatrical release in the United States. Moonwalker was instead released on home video and within a year sold more than 800,000 copies in the United States, reportedly grossing $67 million, $165.2 million, when adjusted for inflation. However, for Michael Jackson, the real moneymakers during this period came in the form of album sales and touring. In 1988, Forbes magazine estimated that Jackson was the highest-paid entertainer of the year, earning a colossal $60 million, $155 million in dollars today, during a 12-month period in 1987 to 1988, stating that, quote, "Rock stars make their money in up to 6 basic ways. There are royalties from songwriting, recording, videos, and souvenirs. There is live performance, and there is sponsorship. And he has been milking all 6. Since its release a year prior, Bad had sold between 12 to 15 million copies and earned him approximately $30 million, $77.5 million when adjusted for inflation. Forbes commenting that although his sales are still high, the cost of producing a Michael Jackson album had also increased. Quote, "He would have to repay the costs of recording it advanced by CBS because he spent so much time in the studio. The costs will have been astronomical, but he should be able to afford it." They also note that sales of his top-selling autobiography Moonwalk that sold 120,000 copies in Britain alone, as well as selling tabloid newspapers and serial rights, just one admitting to pay $520,000, meant Jackson raked in millions for the book and contributed to his sky-high earnings during this period. However, Michael Jackson also worked hard for the rest of his millions, performing night after night on his Bad World Tour. Financially, concerts used to be so expensive to produce they were largely just a promotional tool, with artists making money only out of t-shirt and other souvenir sales, all shamelessly overpriced and yielding 25% to the artist. Michael Jackson concerts, however, made the artist a considerable living. Forbes noting that just 14 shows in Britain and Ireland grossed $26.9 million, $69.5 million today. Upon the tour's completion in early 1989, the Bad World Tour grossed a total of $125 million, $308.2 million in dollars today, and was the highest-grossing solo tour of the 1980s. As a result, in 1989, Forbes magazine estimated Michael Jackson's earning for the year at $65 million, or $160.2 million when adjusted for inflation, raking in $40 million, $98.6 million today, from his recent worldwide tour, this making him the second time in a row the world's highest-paid entertainer. However, it wasn't all work and no play for Michael as he developed a taste for the finer things, spending handsomely on his now lavish lifestyle. His biggest expense was his Santa Barbara residence, Neverland Valley Ranch, which he purchased in 1988 for $19.5 million, $50.4 million in dollars today. Over the years to come, Jackson spent approximately $35 million, $90.4 million today, transforming the expansive compound into his own paradise, constructing a full-scale movie theater, an amusement park, exotic zoo, bird and reptile house. He also filled his home with art antiques, arcade games, and anything else he desired. Just the yearly running and staffing costs of Neverland was estimated to be $3 million, $7.8 million today, an expense well worth it for the global pop icon. Even with Michael Jackson maintaining a low profile at the dawn of the 1990s, he still appeared on the list of top-earning entertainers in 1990. With an annual income of $35 million, $81.9 million when adjusted for inflation. The reclusive star's wealth grew largely due to royalties collected for his music, his ATV catalog's earnings, and other business ventures, including his best-selling video game collaboration with Sega, Moonwalker. In 1991, Michael Jackson signed an unprecedented deal with Sony Music Entertainment. Quote, "We're married to him now," said Sony president Michael P. Shvulnoff, as instead of signing with Sony as simply a recording artist, Jackson negotiated a much more intertwined partnership that had the potential to spawn sales of over $1 billion. Collaborating with Sony Music, Columbia Pictures, and Sony Electronic Publishing, the entertainer was expected to not only record 6 studio albums, but to have his hand in a range of endeavors including films, television, and video gaming. Upon signing the 360-degree contract, Sony agreed to pay Michael Jackson a series of advances totaling $50 million, $112.2 million in dollars today. However, industry spectators questioned the move. Quote, "Since Sony spent $2 billion on acquiring CBS, it has continued a corporate shopping spree for entertainment properties. Many senior figures in the music and film business seriously questioned the wisdom that motivated Sony to re-sign Jackson, as they see it, regardless of cost." After 2 years raking up expensive studio time, giant expectations for Sony to invest tens of millions in marketing, and at least $20 million in music videos to promote Jackson's next LP, Sony was banking on Michael's album sales remaining sky high. With the release of 1991's Dangerous, Michael put everything into promoting the record, including starring in several high-profile music videos, wowing audiences with award show performances and a Super Bowl halftime show, agreeing to his first sit-down interview in 14 years, and embarked on another worldwide tour. Even though he vowed to never tour again, Jackson was convinced to go on the road by his record label. But this time, it wasn't to line his own pockets, but to benefit his newly found charity, Heal the World, with a goal to raise profits of $100 million by the end of 1993, $211.5 million when adjusted for inflation. Pepsi came in again to sponsor the tour, paying the pop icon undisclosed millions for his endorsement and contributing $100,000, $217,000 today, towards Michael's new foundation. Performing night after night around the world, Dangerous sales increased abroad at a faster pace when compared to domestically, and within 2 years of its release, the LP had sold over 20 million copies. In addition, Jackson had negotiated an even more favorable royalty rate that netted him approximately 25% of an album's retail price, a rate that translated to $2.50 or $5.29 today. Therefore, by 1993, he had made at least $40 million from the release of Dangerous, the first album released under his new contract. Aside from his own album sales, Michael Jackson successfully increased profits from his ATV music catalog, and by 1993, it was said to be earning him annually an additional $26 million, or $55 million in dollars today. In 1993, Forbes magazine estimated Michael Jackson's net worth to be at around $150 million, or $317.3 million when adjusted for inflation. He was the king of pop, a world-class performer and highly profitable music artist who had leveraged his wealth to acquire considerable assets without the need to take on any extra debts. Although Jackson was a huge earner, he was equally a big spender, giving generously to charities, buying lavish gifts, and making ostentatious purchases. But unfortunately, not all his impressive income was spent on his every whim and desire. Being one of the richest and most famous people in the world meant a large target was placed on his back, whether by the vicious mainstream press or those looking to line their pockets with his fortune by any means possible. Michael soon had a team of lawyers busy in court with cases made against him for numerous reasons, whether alleged broken contracts, unpaid staff members, accusations he plagiarized music, and even unfounded baby mama drama. None of these character assassinations seemed to impact the empire Michael had built. Not until the summer of 1993, when one accusation would ignite a series of events that would see his financial good fortune take a detrimental turn for the worse.
He was touring and some news crew
Michael Jackson.
like a criminal. Jackson's parents in Los Angeles.
Check out part 2, where we delve into Michael's complex financial landscape, business breakthroughs, and chronic cycles of colossal debt that lasted all the way until his final demise. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.